All right, good. I'm glad you're getting your win. 324.
Senate Bill 324 is enabling legislation to add 3% admission and amusement tax for counties and municipalities. The bill applies to food and beverages consumed on site. The comptroller had raised an issue as far as the timeline of the effectiveness of the bill, and the recommendation was for an amendment for the bill to take effect July 2026.
Is that it?
That's it.
Questions? Senator?
Mr. Chair, this would be authorized, and obviously local jurisdictions would have the ability to do it. It would be up to 3%. So if they wanted to do 1, they wanted to do 2, they wanted to do 3. I see MML in here. I don't think that they would have an issue with the changing of the effectiveness date. It makes sense if the comptroller has an issue from an implementation standpoint. But I do think that as we talked about some of the cost shifting, that this helps alleviate some of the pressures off of our local jurisdictions.
Okay. Other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 595.
Okay, Senate Bill 595 is the Laurel Racetrack bill. There was, I'm looking for the crossbow.
Your old bill?
You have so many old bills.
There is an amendment for this bill. This bill provides local impact aid of $250,000 instead of $500,000. That is what the amendment does. You should have it on your desk. For the impact aid would go to Anne Arundel County, Howard County, the city of Laurel, to provide services such as health and mental health counseling, drug and alcohol addiction, social services, and transportation, among other things, to backstretch workers. The amendment also adds that there should be consultation with at least 2 Laurel Race Course backstretch workers designated by the county. Executive Anne Arundel County may use the public grant application process to develop and administer the Race Course Impact Advisory Committee. And the amendment also gives a determination date for 2 years.
Senator Rosebach?
Yeah, this is to deal with the backstretch workers who have moved to Laurel with Pimlico and all the stuff that we know about. It's to help them while they're in a kind of disrupted situation. The amendments are the ones adopted by the House, and they're fine with me, and I'd move the amendments.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
759. Yes, ma'am.
Senate Bill 759 would expand eligibility for the public safety employee retirement income subtraction modification to include service as a 911 specialist. This is the one that starts at age 55. We don't have a score on the general fund. I would note that I think generally, based on the fact that we have not been able to move them into any of the state public safety plans, which have earlier retirement ages, their retirement ages may be, for the normal retirement age, in that age 62 to 65 range.
Questions on this bill? All those in favor?
Wait, I do. There was an amendment, a Tetco amendment. It's not the same one. Never mind. All in favor, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Senator Heddleman? It's all yours.
759, Senate.
House Bill 1010.
House Bill 1010 would allow for grants and donations to be made to the African American Heritage Preservation Grant Fund of the Maryland Historical Trust, and then allow for those grants and donations to be used for preserving or sharing African American history or culture in the state. I think Senator McCray might have had something. Again.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I watched this issue very closely because I've been able to work on the operating side of it. This one dealt with the capital piece of it, and one of the things that I recognize is that the speaker obviously came here herself, always speaks passionately about this specific issue, and has been working on making sure that African-American institutions that need capital funding, that capital funding exists and that the assistance of the state is there for them. The amendment that I would like to put forward is that if we can put the Adrian A. Jones Preservation, African-American Preservation Fund in front of that is the amendment that I would like to put forward. Text him, he hasn't texted me back though. Ferguson. Okay. Okay.
Now, we're gonna make a quick check on something, but, so we'll hold that for a minute. Yes, ma'am. We're making a quick check on something. Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay, let's go to the, HB 819 actually is just an exact cross-file. Well, once we amend it, it'll be exact cross-file to Senator McCray's bill on this issue, correct?
Kind of. So
Kinda. I don't like
this is
kinda.
a procurement bill. This is the employee stock ownership bill. It was amended on the floor, Senate Bill 653, to change it from a price preference to an evaluation factor for sealed competitive proposals. The amendments in the reprint before you generally conform the House bill to those amendments. However, on review of the Senate bill as amended, there were some extraneous definitions that needed to be removed. So the amendments to House Bill 819 clean those issues up, removing the extraneous provisions, but also largely making it the same as the Senate bill. And I've spoken with my House counterpart. They'll take care of conforming the Senate bill with
Okay,
those
the bottom line
technical
is we're getting these both in the same place.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of doing that?
Aye.
Opposed? So that's Senator McCray. 819 is your cross-file to yours, the employee stock ownership. Okay, let's spend some time now, which is going to take a little bit of time, and see where we get, and then we might come back to the list afterwards. But let's start with the Decade Act, 427.
Mr. Chair, there's someone from the Department of Administration here to assist.
Okay? Everybody can come up who wants to assist. From the administration, anybody from the administration?
Actually, we're still running reprints because the photocopier missed it.
Oh, jeez. Okay, we'll have reprints in a minute.
Okay.
Some people have them?
Oh, they're not correct, so if you have a reprint, get rid of them.
The photocopier decided to skip pages. So I'm forwarding my bills on the
All right, while we're waiting for those reprints, we're going to knock out a couple matches.
So the first one, Jane? Thanks. So the first one is House Bill 133. It is identical to the cross-file of Senate Bill 183. It was not on the consent calendar that you all voted on last week simply because it did not pass unanimously. This is the one about requiring SDAT in the notification of the constant yield tax rate. It is exact match.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Who had that?
We'll get it to the same,
Same person?
yeah.
Okay.
House Bill 390 is the same situation. This is the one with the affordable housing payment in lieu of taxes bill.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's yours, right?
The third one is House Bill 750. This is identical to Senate Bill 596. This deals with Washington County. Actually, sorry. As it came over, it's not identical. But this deals with the property tax credit for economic development projects. What you all did to the Senate bill is added provisions that would make the Hagerstown multi-use sports and events facility not subject to state and local property taxes. I prepared an amendment in case you wanted to conform this House bill to that version of the Senate bill.
Move to conform.
Second.
All those in favor?
And then there's House Bill 791. This one is identical, but it was not unanimous. This is the Somerset County property tax for emergency services.
791. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You had that, JB, right? You had that Somerset bill? That's it, right?
That's all the four I have that are like that. Yep.
We get the reprint.
I don't see it.
Okay.
It's 20 minutes.
It's
20 minutes.
long.
The copier tells us how long.
Okay. All right. 790. Sorry, guys.
Never mind.
House Bill 7. Again. House Bill 790 deals with tax sales. This bill would require county governments to include certain information in each property tax bill, a separate insert containing information, I believe related to the availability of installment plans for paying taxes.
And there's got to be a cross on this, right, or no?
There is no crossfire on this.
Really? Okay. Sounds reasonable to me. I wasn't here for that hearing, I don't think. Anybody have any thoughts? Seems like a friendly thing to do.
Move favorable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Senator King? That's what you get for being favorable.
For being nice.
No. Let's look at 401, Senate bill.
is in finance. It was jointly assigned.
Oh, okay, so it's still there, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Can we send a nudge to them?
They're supposed to vote it today.
Okay, well, then that'll be that. Yeah.
Looks like we're, Triple E has it, right? Am I reading that right?
We already did that one.
691? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Um, 59, House Bill 59.
House Bill 59, this is the departmental tax sale bill. You've already heard Senate 192. The discussion on that one was largely related to a few items, so it's pretty close to the bill that came out last year. You should have amendments, reprint on your desk.
Did you work this one, Senator? Okay.
Yeah. Is the tax sale.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's a few amendments to the House bill. The House struck the provisions related to the expansion of the water sale prohibition, so there's no changes on any of the water sale bills. And then in the amendments before you, there are a few additions. The first one is bringing provisions from Senate Bill 724. That was Senator McRae's bill dealing with the issues with the air-occupied properties. So it's adding provisions, you'll see this on page 2 and 3, adding property, for the properties less than 1,000, that are either owner-occupied residential or residential property occupied by an heir of a deceased owner. So it's adding the protection there for heir properties. On page 3, the provisions also establish requirements for counties to develop a registry for interested parties or the tax sale ombudsman to designate a property to be withheld from tax sale according to it being subject to a protection from tax sale. The next change further on in the bill on page, so on pages 9 and on page 9, the House struck provisions extending the timeline, so it preserves the existing 7 months, 9 months for the notice and then filing of the foreclosure. On page 10, there are amendments. So once a property goes to foreclosure and there's a judgment, there is currently a 30-day waiting period before the purchaser who forecloses on the property can move to take possession. The House had 90 days. The amendments before you keep that at the existing 30-day window. And then on page 11, the House, last year you all passed a provision to require posting of notice on the property when there's tenants after a foreclosure. That initially had come in at 1 day. The House changed to 10 days. The amendments before you reduced that to 5 days. Also on page 11, you'll see the maintenance of the 7 and 9 month foreclosure period window. And then I think those are the only changes in the amendments. It's House Bill 59. All right, I can get you a reprint. Yes.
Okay, I was holding it.
Oh, yeah, you can pass that out.
Okay, so we're gonna just vote that?
Yes, sir.
All right. All those in favor, this is 1010, back to House Bill 1010. This is Speaker's bill that we were talking about. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Senator McCray.
I don't talk much.
Senator McCray has been working on this pretty extensively. And who's been taking the lead over on the House side?
It's been the chair and Melissa Wells.
Okay, so you all been working together?
I informed them this morning of where we were at, what was going to be presented.
Okay, is it general agreement, or where are we?
They came in with, I'll turn my mic on.
Great.
They came in with several amendments. I think that Philip articulated in reference to what those are. We do have a couple changes. One of them is in reference to the air properties. I did come in with a bill dealing with air properties to add more protections that's amended into this respective bill. And then there was a notification from the 90 days to 30 days to bring it in alignment with what everything else in statute is.
Okay,
And those are the two differences outside of the stuff that you articulated was the changes for the House, right?
Right.
You know what it was? The 5 days, I think, is another one.
Right. So, yeah, there's a provision the House adopted to, instead of 1 day posting the notice of foreclosure on the property, they did 10 days, the amendments before you shorten that to 5 days.
Yeah. And this is an issue that we've worked on for the last 2 years. It didn't make it in time. And trying to put it in a posture to where you're listening to all those sides and trying to get to some level of agreement. I think that folks with MML would be happy in reference to the water issue being addressed. I think the folks in Baltimore City would be happy because the water issue stays from that standpoint, but also looking at some other things that align.
okay. Yes, please.
Question. So I remember this last year, and that there were tenant groups that were upset and
Is there, Bill?
other folks who were upset. Where are those sides in this bill now?
Yep. So the only changes that the tenant groups would be interested in would be the 10 to 5 and the 90 to 30. So what we did last year, just to make sure that I bring the committee back up to speed, because we were changing the layout and structure of how water was presented, we did take a number of last minute amendments that really wasn't flushed out because they were last minute. We adopted them, and there was significant concern about like the 90, everything else is 30 in statute, so just bringing that back in line. And then the 10 to 5, those are the only two changes that tenants or the things that they had presented last year, flushing it out and figuring out what the balance. So it still changes, but it does change to something that's a little bit more in the middle from that standpoint.
Okay, I remember last year they opposed the bill. Do you know where folks are now?
I think that they opposed the bill in reference to water was the main
Right.
issue.
So that's not,
Water's gonna walk away the way they want it.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Senator McCray, you're going to have a big calendar out there. $13.72. House bill.
1372 is a Washington County delegation bill for their tax sale process. It alters Their required notice provisions for publication.
Okay, I think we need to hold this. 1085.
Uh, 1085 would standardize the existing law for property owned by certain nonprofit entities created by public housing authorities. Currently, there are provisions related to Baltimore City, Howard, and Montgomery. This bill would expand it to all counties in the state. And I believe there are provisions providing for payment in lieu of taxes, subject to agreement between those entities and the counties. There was no crossfile. I don't have any in the file, no.
Okay.
Wanted 4 words amended into this bill, and I just was checking to see if that was taken into consideration.
You mean 1085?
1085?
Yeah, 1085.
I have not seen that, so if you want to get that to me, I can.
Okay, it was uploaded to the, and theirs is, it just says used, comma, or will be used. And I guess it's for properties that. Yeah.
Oh, this one. They didn't submit it over here, that's why I didn't have it.
My bad.
Okay, yeah, let's move off this one. Needs a little work. All right, so we're holding on that one for now.
House Bill 953 deals with the homeowner protection program for tax sales. It adds requirements for additional information to be collected and reported, outreach for participation in the program, and then it's also making changes to the funding of the program. So current law has a funding requirement through fiscal year 2025 of $750,000. The bill makes that a permanent funding requirement of $250,000 from interest on overdue state property tax, and then also adds a $500,000 requirement for funding from the counties attributed to their percentage of their total number of real property accounts as of July 1 of the preceding fiscal year.
Is there
This is
Senate
not,
cross?
this is not cross-filed, though.
Has anybody here worked on this bill?
953.
953.
I'm happy to work on this bill.
I mean, I'm reluctant to, obviously tax sales have been a subject of a lot of interest and focus, and so I'm not real excited about just doing it if none of us have had our fingers on it.
Bad, I should have cross-filed it with my delegate.
Yeah.
Ran out of time, sir.
Okay.
I just did.
Um,
What can I do to help here?
we're gonna hold it. We're gonna, if you wanna work, if you wanna work this, I'd suggest also you, since Senator McCray seems to be one of the more active people on this, just to get his eyes on it too. Maybe Senator Heidelman, you're into this this issue. It's a mini work group, Anybody else who'd like to get involved in it? You can raise your hand.
I can take the lead out, I'll work with Corey and
Okay,
we'll get it done.
okay, see if it's ready for prime time. Okay. What's this, House Bill 859?
House Bill 859 would require the health benefit exchange partnering with State Department of Education to promote pre-kindergarten provider hubs, childcare associations, and relevant nonprofits for helping childcare professionals obtain health insurance either through the exchange or through Medicaid. The bill, as amended by the House, is effectively an outreach bill. As introduced, it had provisions stricken that would have more actively provided insurance, but those were not viable through the state plan.
Is there a cost?
One time, 250,000 in '26.
How am I feeling about this? Certainly seems reasonable to try to get people
Do we have the money?
for 1 year. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Shay, can we go back to House Bill 1085?
We can. Senator King, you got that one.
Here's my bill. It's crossed out in my bill.
I didn't hear what, I thought there wasn't a crossfall.
On that one there was, but you didn't pass it.
My conscience is telling me here, this is your cross file, and the money is there, asked to pass yours, mine. So mine must be held in here somewhere.
611.
Senate Bill 611. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? As amended?
Amended.
As amended, yep. Okay. All right. Which one do you want to go back to?
I just read 1085 in its entirety, and the reason why they didn't submit testimony is because the issue was addressed. They submitted on the House and House addressed the issue.
Okay.
All right, we're just going to hold that for now. Are we ready now with everybody? All right, now we're going to bring the Fallon.
Less than a decade.
To set the stage, how many different programs are in this bill?
As amended to the committee minutes.
No, as introduced.
As introduced?
Introduced was 30.
30.
Microphone.
They'll get
Better,
it.
can you
They'll
sit
get
on?
you. They'll get you. Yeah,
I believe it was 30 as introduced. I'll check back. As amended.
that's close enough.
Okay.
Yeah. As amended,
Well, it hasn't been amended yet, so.
right, well, it's not amended. You're talking about things that were put forth.
You're right, yeah, on
to
the-
committee,
on the proposals.
Council and such, right.
And there would be
And
11.
what has the House done?
The House was waiting for the Senate per an agreement that had been sorted out with some presiding officer staff.
Okay,
So they're good to go. They're more so asking, kind of, okay, we'll move whatever the Senate comes over.
okay,
I can tell people what's on their desk.
yes.
Okay. So what's on your desk, because of its length, I did do a chart.
Oh, that chart. Oh, it got it.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
So with this chart, it acts as basically a table of contents, a very brief description of each action on the topics. I pulled in the fiscal impact of each of those things, any amendment requests, and then at least what the reprint has for purposes of discussion. There was no work group on this, so this is the first time this is coming up for you guys. The reprint, the framework around which the reprint was created was due to timing, presiding officers checked with the administration on what priorities, given that 30 was just a lot. The administration submitted some priorities, and things that weren't priorities were struck out of the bill, so that's what's in your reprint. However, there are two things that you all, that the administration wants to put back in, so I'll wrap that into the discussion as we go through. So real quick, the Economic Development Commission, it was going to repeal that. That is not in the bill right now. The target industry sectors, there are many programs that kind of define their own target industry sectors for purposes of various credits or economic development programs. The idea here was for Commerce to standardize it. That is struck from the bill. The Life Sciences Advisory Board was going to alter the schedule. That is also struck from the bill. Partnership for Workforce Quality. The MEF Fund. The first time when, let's see, the MEDAF, Maryland Economic Development Assistance Authority. Part of this program, not only does the department have a role in this, but also the separate authority. This would repeal that authority, rename the program, and then alter some assistance. So in your reprint, since that's the first unstruck provision, in your reprint, that is beginning on page 21. A lot of these brackets have to do with repealing the authority. So most of these are conforming the first substantive one as well as renaming it. On page 28, it's pretty much the first substantive one, which was there were limitations on, in terms of making awards and the maximum of the awards that could be, there was kind of a divided tier that the department could make awards up to this amount, but then if the authority approved it, then they could do this. Because the authority is being repealed, this would remove that tiered approach to how much each entity could award. The next page, the other substantive one is there was a requirement that the locals, this provision, would need to provide a guarantee or finance the costs for any economic assistance that they would receive from the state under this program. Let's see. Page 32 are some of the other substantive items. This would increase the overall assistance caps that could be provided to local governments or other corporations. Sorry, the Maryland Economic Development Corporation, MEDCO, from 5 million to 7.5, and then from 2 million to 5. That continues on the top of page 33. Then what this authority would do is, on page 34, a loan is one of the types of financial assistance that this program could provide. Statute stipulated what the loan repayment schedule should be like and some of the terms. This basically removes those and would leave it up to Commerce's discretion. So that's it with me to F. Do you want me to keep going, or?
I'm trying to figure out how we
I know.
can really attack this. How about? How about? Yes.
So where'd the figures come from? The
figures?
change, yeah, the change from,
The designing officers.
no, the on line 26 on page 20, on 32. We went from 5,000 to 7,500, 2,000 to 5.
That's introduced, as introduced by the administration.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank,
It's a different program. It's later on.
Democrat.
Thank you, and Ms. Schisler, I just want to thank you for the fancy layout. It's very readable. Mr. Chair, I marked up one of them, I think is already addressed. The C doesn't look like it's going to have any change. Just the anchor institution is what you have on the paper, struck from bill, no change to current law.
That is one that the administration is going to discuss, because the seed, maybe if I progress a little bit more, that will be clear as to what you all might want to consider there. I don't know if we want to jump ahead, is what I'm saying.
Okay. I only got 2 issues on this sheet of paper, Mr. Chair, so let me know when you want me to bring them up.
Don't we just move to the next one, or there's? Correct, yes, where there was substance, I moved to the reprint to explain what was in the chart. So I am on page 3 of the chart right now. Actually, now I'm at the bottom of page 2.
I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for your indulgence, everyone. I'm sorry your chairman's a little slow. I needed to follow the bouncing ball, and I couldn't quite do it. Now I can, and hopefully everyone can too. We'll take our time and do whatever we need to do. All right?
Okay, so returning to the chart.
We're going to only use a chart. This will help a lot, I think, if we only use a chart and don't go back and forth between the reprint.
Okay.
I know.
It'll be extra reading for tonight if that's.
Yep.
Feel good.
So on page.
Yeah, so in the big picture, though, the number of programs here, about 9 different things, changes, additions, things we're going to do, what we'd like to do, what the administration would like to do, and I think is reasonable to do, and we can all decide together. At the end of the day, this doesn't cost us anything, right? I figured you'd like that.
They're hiring for you too? All right, here we go.
Yeah, there you go. Doesn't cost anything, and hopefully at the end of the day, it's going to help businesses do a better, or help us do a better job helping businesses. All right, here we go.
All right, so we left off page 2 of the chart. We already.
2, the first item the full item on the top. I would, yeah.
Yes,
just say
I was
number them.
about-
Yeah.
about-
Beautiful.
Okay, great. So page 2 at the top is the Maryland Economic Development Assistance Authority. That was already discussed. The idea here is to adopt it as introduced, but strike the part about the Commerce creating an industry list. So the industries that would be eligible for MEDAF would remain unchanged. The next.
Anybody jump in on any one of these as we go along the way. Senator McCray, you had a couple things along the way, so jump in on any item that you want to talk about.
We're on page 1 right now.
We're on page 2.
There's nothing on page 1.
Page 1,
Nothing on page 1.
nothing.
All right, now we're on page 2. At the top, the first item was just described. Anybody have any questions about that item? Okay, so nobody has any problem with that. At the end of the day, we're just going to say yay. So, next item.
Okay, the next item where there is, the bottom of that page, the Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority. Right now, there's several different funds that get used in various ways. This proposal would repeal them and kind of combine all 4 of those funds into one, call it the Economic Inclusion Fund, but still doing the same function. It also increases the maximum assistance that would be provided to entity. The administration wanted to remove a requirement to reserve 50% for the industry sectors. That's really just conforming because the bill no longer has the commerce setting an industry list. So the idea there was to adopt that and including the administration amendment, which is what is in the reprint.
Okay. Any questions or issues on this? Remember, certainly feel free to jump in and ask the administration if you have any questions about any of these items along the way. All right, I'm going to assume that one's okay. Next.
Page 3 at the bottom, Maryland Economic Development Corporation. Currently, there are 2 programs.
Page 3, Senator, you got on page 3, Senator Benson? At the very bottom. Yeah, very bottom, Medco, last one.
There are 2 programs that currently reside under Commerce. What this bill does is it moves them to Medco. Those programs are RISE zones and the Build Our Future Grant Pilot Program. Because of moving those into Medco, the bill also would allow Medco to use 5% of those funds for administration. There are a number of changes to the RISE zone, including the renewal period, requirements to be, actually that one would be struck too. And then for Build Your Own Future, that actually also extends the termination date by 3 years. So the idea here was, I believe the idea is to continue to move them to Medco, but also the Medco board would be amended to require a Senate appointee, not a member, but an individual appointed by the president and an individual appointed by the speaker.
Are there members of each chamber?
No, not members of the body, just appointments by the president and the speaker. From knowledgeable people from the public. Senator Heddleman.
Why are we moving this to Medco?
Well,
Yes, please.
This and a couple other portions of the bill, as more programs have been created and put under Medco, like Strategic Revolving Loan Fund that's in here and being funded this year, they really have a majority of the infrastructure, particularly kind of the innovation infrastructure funding mechanisms. Commerce has a couple, but Commerce has really primarily been focused on business attraction, job creation, development, and that kind of side of economic development. Since we have all these kind of economic cooks in the kitchen, as we call it, we're trying to streamline so that there is a singular place that does infrastructure instead of trying to bring multiple parties together to put together an individual package.
So my understanding is, well, two things. One is we don't really have oversight over Medco, right? So I guess I'm a little concerned about that because they're not in our budget, one. And two is, don't they do things like a lot of dormitories and construction for our public universities and other kind of big infrastructure projects like that? And is that different from what you're trying to get at here?
It is. That is one function that they have. They also do things like site development. TIFs is a big part of their model. So some of the biggest projects that we know in the state they've been involved with, particularly on the TIF end, that's kind of more of what we're leaning into. They have been really focused and working around institutions like University of Maryland College Park on kind of the Discovery District side there of building it. There's innovation hubs. And so that's part of the reason to move not just the Rise Zone program, but also the Build Our Future program there so that it complements all of that work that they're doing. They do parts of that. So like we heard a lot about that during the pandemic, actually, that they had some student housing there. That is a component, but it's just not their like defining feature.
So can you color me a picture of what the kind of development projects are under these? Because
Absolutely.
that seems a little different to me than what you're trying to get at here, but maybe I'm not understanding it right.
Yeah, absolutely. So take, for instance, College Park right now, which is really focused on expanding its quantum computing presence. They would be eligible for something like the Build Our Future grant program as a matching grant to be able to get some financing to build the actual buildings or build out the labs. We've used that for all sorts of sectors. There is a fantastic lithium-ion battery company that utilized a grant from Build Our Future in the first rounds that they used to build out an advanced manufacturing facility. This is about kind of the tangible pieces of it, where individual companies, particularly startups, are not building their own buildings, but others are developing them, whether it's a SCIF, advanced manufacturing, or wet lab, that then creates kind of the environment for folks to move into.
Do you imagine these being attached to universities?
They don't have to be directly tied to a university. We did add prioritization in the Rise Zone section for the program
Right,
within
Rise
those
zones
hubs.
are, right.
Yep.
Rise zones are, right.
And just quick, on the oversight, I did confirm that they will still be subject to OLA audits under this because they will be receiving operating dollars, which is also in the budget with the Strategic Revolving Loan Fund. So they'll be going through that process regardless whether we move it here.
Okay, thank you.
Come to your point earlier, they do come before us, even though there's not a
Yeah.
recommendation. That's right. But we have the right to bring them in and have questions and all the rest. Yes.
If I understand it correctly, basically this is all about real estate.
On the
All the-
Medco piece,
For Medco, all the examples you're citing are real estate related.
yes,
is that
Senator,
correct?
that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to assume that one's okay.
All right, continuing on page 4, for TEDCO, I think the idea here is possibly to continue with, as introduced. This is a deal with TEDCO. They obviously deal with investing and getting a a share, basically, of various companies that have been assisted. If those companies fall out of eligibility, typically that's staying located in Maryland, TEDCO would disinvest from that. And so this would require TEDCO to adopt regulations for when they no longer meet eligibility requirement, just to make it clearer on their powers to disinvest.
No. Well, this is a revised idea now, to leave it there and to allow them to develop these procedures, which may not be just sort of like, give us everything right now. It's over time kind of thing.
Okay, they're nodding their head yes back into.
Question?
No questions now?
Okay. Excuse me?
Could someone talk just a little bit more about, I've heard a lot of good things about the commerce industry. What are we talking about here?
We're talking about TEDCO.
Yes.
We're talking about TEDCO and their ability to manage situations, changing situations within their purview.
Didn't what?
Brad, do you want to?
Yeah, so it's a disinvestment rule. So right now, there's this the TEDCO kind of disinvestment rules based off where the employees reside. And 51% of them need to reside in the state. If they drop below that, as you can imagine, this happens more and more in the post-COVID era, they have to immediately disinvest, which often sinks the company, but also puts their investment at stake. This just says they could have a little bit of a longer timeline and adopt regs where they have to disinvest, but they can keep the value of the investment in mind during that process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
That answers the question.
There's no other questions. I'll assume that that's fine. Okay.
On page 5, the Child Care Capital Support Revolving Loan Fund. It's an
Wait,
exist.
sorry, didn't you have one? Didn't you have the business filing fee?
Oh, sorry, thank you. I didn't have a highlighter. The, on page 5 at the top is the business filing fee. Also, the idea here is to not strike this from the bill. This would require SDAT to waive for entities proving that they are in a RISE zone within 3 years of the due date, to basically waive the filing fees for businesses.
Yes.
When you say the filing fee, this is the $300 a year
Correct.
That's right.
fee? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Is anything in this bill changing the geographic or definition of RISE zones?
No. The only thing that is added is this RISE zone catchment area, where it expands out for some prioritization for 2 community development programs, seed and community investment tax credit. That doesn't change the zone itself, though.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There's no questions. We'll move on.
All right, the next one immediately below, the Child Care Capital Support Revolving Loan Fund. This is an existing program. The changes are limiting eligibility for renovations, things like that they have to be in Excel levels. For family or large family child care centers, $50,000 of any of this loan could be converted to a grant. It has also switched the administration of this program from MSDE to Commerce, with a prioritization criteria list for areas lacking pre-K or childcare slots. So that's the provision dealing with that, and that is in the bill as introduced.
No. Senator Jackson?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I need to step back to the business filing fees.
Okay.
So is this typical that entities within the zone do not pay these fees? I mean, everybody else pays these fees. Why are they asking not to pay these fees?
Yeah, part of that is this idea of incentivizing clustering for these kind of innovation hubs and the benefit that brings from kind of fostering multiple stages of programs in one place. You can think Silicon Valley or the Research Triangle and the Carolinas. It's $300. It's not a significant hit. It's one additional thing to say, hey, if you locate here, here's a little additional benefit in addition to some of these other things that are listed. We haven't done that. A bunch of other states do no taxes for 10 years. So this is kind of like a pared down version of that.
Well, I think, I have a concern with that. I mean, I think if, it's some of us have businesses or I think there's been maybe a couple of attempts over the years to get rid of that cost through SDAT, and it hasn't gone anywhere because of the amount of fees that come, the amount of dollars that have accumulated there. And I think if you're talking $300 incentive, I think the ride zone itself, I think that's incentive enough. And I think I don't like the precedent, Mr. Chairman.
How many businesses are in these ride zones?
They have to qualify.
How many?
They have to qualify, so we'd have to count. Right now, the program has essentially no benefits.
0.
So, yeah, it's a handful. I think the only folks who've ever used the rental assistance is Towson and their Armory, where they do have some kind of startups based out of there, but it's not many. This is trying to get some life to the program.
So wait a minute, so in the ride zone,
Yeah,
we played around with this for years.
right.
And so how many businesses are in ride zones?
0.
No, we do have businesses in price zones. I don't have that number. The way that the bill went in, they had to be in that target sector list. I actually, as Senator Jackson is bringing up those concerns, without the list, I might recommend that it be stricken from the bill because then other businesses would be captured even if they're not in the tech sector. So I can see a concern on that.
Sorry, I didn't follow the logic there.
So
Well,
the way that
first of all, let's just step back a second.
yeah,
How many of these zones do we have?
3 right now.
And we've had some that are expired or expiring.
That's right.
And how many are those?
4, I believe. Yeah, 4.
So expired or expiring 4, existing 3. And in the expired or expiring, are there, and I think there's some language in here to continue some of those, is that correct?
It doesn't terminate them. Yeah, it continues the program.
So those 4 will come back into the program.
They will. Yeah, they will still
So we'll
exist.
have 7.
No, I'm sorry. They would have to renew. They would have to submit the request.
But if they renew,
They would be included. That's
would
right.
be included. So we end up getting 7 of these. They're all based with universities, yes?
Yes.
And on the ground, they're all geographic. And on the ground, how many businesses are all in those 7 zones?
I don't
Roughly.
know because it depends. The qualification isn't just existing in the zone. So I'd have to go get that data on who's.
So you can exist in the zone and not be part of the program.
That's right. For instance, College Park is the most recent. They have the entire Discovery District, but not
Yes.
everybody there is in the stage in their company to qualify for anything under the program.
Okay, and what incentives are associated with the RISE zone?
With this, there is a rental assistance program that is typically budgeted $750,000 a year. There's mandated appropriation. That was zeroed out on this. There is an enhancement for both BITSI and ITSI. There is prioritization given under the Build Our Future program. There is the broader CITC and Seed Anchor Institution Fund prioritization. Am I missing anything?
And you've suggested that, I think I heard you suggest that these businesses who are trying to get in or are part of it haven't utilized any of these things.
So several years ago, when we created the rental assistance program, we sunset the tax credit. And I think part of it actually informed when the governor introduced the Build Our Future program, because these small companies, particularly startups, don't own their building, so they couldn't access the property tax credit. So it was terminated to help them in actual rent. The biggest issue was that there was a 10% match from the local jurisdictions, and it had to get approved. And so our friends in College Park worked with and talked with them, and it just is a very lengthy process. So it's often on the administrator of the fund to get that money. The bill removes the requirement for locals to match.
So what you were suggesting in this bill was to add one new incentive, and that's to get rid of the $300 annual filing fees
That's right.
for companies in the RISE zone. And that's supposed to make them come to the area?
I think there is a benefit of centralized location in these hubs rather than things being more spread out, as kind of a core tenet of kind of just the multiple
Yeah,
stages working
I
together.
buy that, but do the universities in all cases, or someone, some entity, control the land to the point that they're focused on bringing in these types of businesses?
They do. They typically do within those areas. So Towson has its armory. College Park, which I know I'm using it to
I've
death.
visited the armory, it's pretty impressive.
Right. College Park, of course, has the
Those
Discovery
Discovery
Desert where they're
Zone,
very
also pretty
focused.
impressive.
Right. Now, what I had raised, and I may have confused it to Senator Jackson's point, the way that we limited this before was that they have to encompass one of these priority industry sectors. Now that that part has been removed from the bill, I would actually have to see what the language applies. It may apply more broadly, in which case there'd be a higher cost. So we would be totally fine if we want to just avoid it and just say, if we want to just strike the business filing fee from the bill.
Second.
I know why you want it gone.
No, that's actually not why I want to go.
Really? You have, I was referring to the senator's
Maryland Saves.
Maryland Saves program.
Yeah, but what I'm
which
going to
is
say
good.
about it, right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
What I'm going
please.
to say about it, it really has not been that helpful with Maryland Saves. This is an example, and this is the thing that worries me about a lot of these things, very frankly, is there are lots of little, very complicated things that have very little impact. And this would be an example. And I know the College Park stuff obviously quite well. And my observation is the reason we've had the success that we've had in College Park is not because we've had a lot of little doodads. It's because we've had strategic cooperation between the university and the city with some help from the county. But it's a strategic approach that gives businesses confidence that they're going to be supported. It's not $5,000 here, $10,000 there, $300 there.
I can imagine that. All right, so there is Senator King?
Yeah, I've got a message here from Montgomery County that there is a RISE zone in Germantown at the community college campus. That hasn't been mentioned. Do you have that on your list?
I do. I think it's one of the three.
One of the four, you mean?
Or 7, whatever.
I think there's only 3 active right now because UMB just expired. I'll pull
I
it
think
up.
that one expired.
It expired?
Yes. So now there's Towson University, Montgomery College, and College Park because UMB just expired. So there's 3.
Oh, Montgomery,
No, I'm talking about the one at Montgomery College.
yep, Montgomery College is one of the 3. It is not scheduled to expire until 2028.
Okay,
That's on page 11 of your packet.
okay.
Okay. I understand. We're just going to, in particular, I've heard that there's interest in removing the filing fees portion of this. Any problem with that? Okay, we'll do that. And I feel like we've dealt with the child care part. Everyone's fine with that? right.
I had a question about that, actually.
Yes?
I didn't understand why we're limiting eligibility for renovations.
It's not quite that. So if loans are provided for renovations, then certain things need to occur. So it's not loans can only be used for renovations, but if they are, there are conditions applied to those those.
I see, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Moving on, the seed. Community Development Anchor.
Okay, so the changes here are not to the base program, but instead are related to RISE zone catchment areas, which is basically a 5-mile radius. And so the department would have to, within the seed program, prioritize to the active RISE zones. It's currently struck from the bill, but the administration, because it's related to the RISE zones, wanted to maintain that in the bill.
Senator McCray.
So I like the Anchor Institution Fund. I think that it works. I think that the premise, I was here when it first started and understand like how did it come to fruition. but it's like you build from strength and from that piece of it. Is this staying in the bill? Because I like it the way it is. I like the anchor institutions the way it is, and I don't know if this is or isn't in the bill, if we're messing with the anchor institution fund.
I think we're suggesting this stays in with any changes? Any changes?
They're supposed to prioritize funds, grants and loans coming from the fund, prioritize them to applicants located in RISE zones, which that is new.
That's no.
I guess that's where my angst would be, Mr. Chair, like, you have these communities, the premise is to build off of the strength. It's not a lot of RISE zones, and then imagine if every year you get cut to the bottom because you're not the priority.
Right. You have a problem leaving it as it is?
We can leave it strong. We'll leave it, no worries
I
with
think it
us.
works.
Okay. So do we need to do anything to leave it the way it is?
I believe the reprint already has that struck, so I know that hasn't been adopted, but from the last draft you all have seen, I think it's just leaving that alone. Right?
Don't include it in the bill.
Don't put it in. We're fine with it.
It will be struck from the bill and current law would prevail. Yep.
Okay. Good, everybody? Okay, now we're to VLT distribution, number 2 on the next sheet, on page 6.
Yep, so currently, let me get to the page, sorry. So currently, there's money that comes from the VLT lottery terminals, the proceeds. There was a certain distribution to the small minority and women-owned business. This would reallocate 0.75% from small minority and women-owned business to Ms. Bidfa instead. That is half of what would be going to Ms. Bidfa. Is half correct?
Yes, so right now, 1.5% of the VLT revenue goes to the small minority women-owned business account. This proposes to split that 1.5%. So 0.75% would go to the small minority women-owned business account, 0.75% would go to the Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority, Ms. Bidfa.
And that's about $10 million into each account.
It's a black caucus priority.
I was about to lean in and say the same thing. I think that, I talked to the chair this morning, in reference to this, and obviously, you know Ms. Bisfa, because you know it's a priority, you know Ms. Bisfa doesn't have a, dedicated funding stream. I did also try to understand the fund managers that, have SWOBA and tried to understand like their point of view. They did say, they agree that it should have a dedicated funding, but they wanted it like at 25% or 33%, but they didn't want it at a half of their thing from that piece. I'd love to have discussion on it if possible.
You like what?
Just to hear thoughts about it.
You mean for us to talk about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I don't have strong feelings about this, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think from our point of view, SMWOBA right now has more money going into it than it can get out. There's about $41 million sitting in the account right now because the fund managers haven't requested to access it because they can't get the money out of the door. And unlike Ms. Bitfa, it's a revolving loan fund, so the money going out comes back in. We believe that Ms. Bitfa is very popular and continues to be oversubscribed. It's something that we hear about often, that they're looking for more money. It's been a popular program. So we would like to keep it at 10, just so that it has a sufficient balance.
Do you have a position on, obviously this is half of it, do you have a position on whether it's a third, whether it's a quarter, do you?
We'd prefer a half, but I won't die on the hill.
Okay. I reached out to my fund manager. I don't know how y'all fund managers feel about the issue.
Are you fine with this?
I think my fund manager asked if it could be taken to a third instead of half.
Right.
Do you have an issue with that?
We would prefer to keep it as a half, but again, we're not gonna throw a bid. Yeah, I think so. A third would get us to $6 million going into the account each year. There's $1.5 million appropriation that I know is likewise up for debate. So the overall account, we may still end up in a position like we have the last few years where we're having to move money around. though we anticipated some of this in drafting the bill. Like Erica mentioned, it does create a single fund between the two programs. Commerce has a capability even just to move money through funds, so they can always move it anyway. So just speaking that out, because if we were to need to do that, it would move over, and I don't want that to seem underhanded.
How about we just go to 40% and call it a day? Okay, done. I think we're on the next page.
Correct. You should be on page 7, the bottom of the page.
Whatever the one below that. Sorry. Sub-cabinet.
We only picked,
Oh, these are separately.
So on page 7 at the bottom, this deals with 2 programs, the Biotech Investment Incentive and the Innovation Investment Incentive, what used to be called cyber, but then was expanded. So this does a number of things, increases the value of the enhanced credits. Initially, the bill would have repealed enhanced credits for 4 counties. The administration has since asked to restore that enhancement. It also allows pass-through entities, tax at the entity level, to allocate among members for the investment. So sorry, we call these ITSI and BITSI. For the Innovation Investment Incentive, ITSI, that was due to expire.
which came out of the cyber program, right?
Correct. And so,
Bio and cyber, ITSI.
yes.
For those who are watching at home.
So the bill would also extend the ITSI, it was going to expire. There is an amendment in here also about, with the pass-through entities, there was a request from the comptroller's office to have basically a delayed implementation timeline of that, so that's also in the reprint. And that is it. It does not change any of the funding, the total funding amount for either of the programs.
Are we good with this piece? Hearing nothing, let's move on. A couple more.
Page 8, Community Investment Tax Credit. This one also has a piece dealing with rise zones and catchment area, so the administration wanted to retain this in the bill. Basically, the eligible contribution for a project that would be in a rise zone or in the extended catchment area, the value of that contribution would increase from 50% to 60%.
All right. Any questions on this segment, Community Investment Tax Credit? Okay, next.
The last on the page is the Research and Development Tax Credit. This one would also extend this through 2030, and at least as introduced, would limit eligibility to commerce industry sectors. That part would have to be struck from the bill, so other than that, the idea was to go ahead and extend this R&D tax credit.
Questions on this? Any issue? Yes?
Data on the R&D tax credit, kind of who's using it?
We do. I didn't prep in front of me, but I'm happy, I can send it over as a follow-up. It's one of the more successful programs. for
It is,
commerce.
and these sectors are using it? Or
Yes.
you? Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
I hear often from businesses that started out using it, and it really is like the difference between starting out and really being able to keep it going. So it's very successful.
Any questions on this? Any more questions? Everybody's good with that? We're on our last one.
We are indeed. Page 10.
R&D, we are indeed.
No, by Maryland.
We are indeed. The what?
No, that was being struck from the bill.
Need to be struck from the bill?
Yes.
I know, did you guys, I have a stakeholder that was concerned about the film tax credit. I know they said that they talked to you all and they.
Yeah, we had told them that we were happy with the amendment. Once it limited down and we were told to select few programs, that wasn't on our list, although I did ask the constituent to come to other members of the Senate President's office. I know he's been talking to them. The amendment.
So, yeah, look, give us a little more on this. This is an existing program. What we're
Yeah.
going to try to do in the bill.
So as introduced, it would have affected the funding levels in out years from $12 million to $20 million. That right now is supposed to drop off. This year it's 20 down to 12. Recommended that be struck. The other piece from an individual in Baltimore City asked to make it refundable and transferable, which we're fine with.
So we think that the issue that you may have might be handled in the BRFA, and that's why it doesn't need to be in this bill.
Okay. You said Jody? Okay. All right, as long as it's addressed, I think he's just money going back to the, I want to say money going back to the program or money that's still being left on the table is what he was concerned about.
Gotcha.
This has to go to finance, so there's time to look into that and make sure.
Okay.
Yes?
That's what I wanted to clarify. So we'll check if it's fixed in the BRFA, and if it's not fixed in the BRFA, we still have time to deal with it.
Yes.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Bye, Marilyn.
By Maryland Cyber.
Yep. So by Maryland Cybersecurity, the idea is, and you can see the changes to make it fully refundable, look at the amounts that can be purchased from a single seller, as well as sunset after 2029. There are no changes to this that have been suggested.
Okay. Another one, another great bill years ago. I wonder who did that. I don't know. I can't imagine. Before Senator Hedman was here. Okay. Where in here did it show that we were allowing for the expired ones to keep trying to jump back into the game?
The rise zones,
That was already in the, yes,
it's just baked into the program.
it's baked into the bill.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So, other than the one we took out completely, which had to do with the $300 fee, and other than the fact that we're going to continue to learn more about the film tax credit, and the fact that it's going to, this would go over to finance, you said? This would be the program. Everyone good with this?
Little,
I doubt it.
just
Sorry.
barely.
I've been around long enough to know. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's off to finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your indulgence. Take another couple-minute break. Okay, this just in. Senator Rosepap.
Yeah. Go back to work?
We are.
Excellent.
Trying to find the one thing. Okay, so this would be an amendment to the tax property article, which is where one of the benefits for being in a rise zone and an enterprise zone exists. This would amend that existing law to basically allow for getting that credit for both rise and the enterprise zone within a rise zone.
If there's overlap.
If there's overlap,
There's
right.
one overlapping situation, it's in Baltimore City, it's around the University of Maryland-Baltimore, and this would allow,
Yeah, it's something in the UMB Biopark.
yep, and it's already baked into the money, so it's not an additional cost. Yes.
Rosepap, the Prince George's component, the Beltsville piece, that doesn't bother the College Park side, does it?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, the Beltsville piece.
Well, Prince George's has one of their sites in Beltsville, community college.
No, not in Beltsville.
Okay, all right.
No, in Largo. And they have some offices in Laurel. but
I
that's
got
it.
you. Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you for asking.
Mayor Zucker.
Mr. Chairman, that sounds great.
Awesome. All those in favor of adding this? Opposed? Thank you very much. Now we can send it to finance.
Okay.
All right.
Now what are we gonna do?
What do you want to do?
I brought this for you.